Okay, so I have a lot to get through with you guys. I have put together a PowerPoint with everything that we need to talk about in order. I may have gone a little bit overboard because that's just what I do. I don't know how to not do these things without being extra. So I'm just going to dive in because I also have a hard stop at 8 p.m. my time. So in an hour and 45 minutes, because I'm going to karaoke. So I was trying to fit this in like the little bit of time that I have because I want to talk with you guys. You love extra. Good. Thank you. All right. So, without further ado, let's get started. Wow, that music ended right when I switched the slide. Fancy. Can you guys hear the music? Maybe I'll turn it up, turn it down. You let me know if it's too much. This music is a little extra, but that's okay. You guys don't hear music at all? Yeah. Okay. If I do this, desktop music is there. You are not routed. Oh, I know what's wrong. Still nothing. How weird. Did I break that in the settings? Do you know how many settings I have to go through every day? Or not every day, but every stream? There's so many things that I have to do to make this work correctly. And every single time, I forget exactly what I did that one time it worked. Give me a second. I'm going to try and figure this out. Well, what if I change that to system? If I do this, can you guys hear it now? I think I'm sending this to stream now. Yeah. Woohoo! It's not working the way it's supposed to. But at least it's working. Is it loud? Do you need me to turn the music down? Just slightly. Okay. Is that better? Okay. Let's try it with the music here, and if it's still loud, just let me know and I'll change it. Alrighty, let's get started. So, I have gathered you all here today because there's been a lot of drama going around on Twitter recently, and I guess in the Korean news, in the media, over what the hell is going on with SM Entertainment. You know, at first it was supposed to be Kakao Entertainment acquiring them, and then over the course of like 2 days, it ended up being that Hive is going to acquire them, and that seemed out of left field. And then, considering there's a lot of fan wars between those companies, there's been a lot of random information going around on Twitter, including misinformation. And, you know, honestly, at this point, I try to ignore all the crazy shit that I see being discussed because I can't fight it. There's nothing I can do except get annoyed when I see things that absolutely don't make sense, and when people who have no idea what they're talking about really confidently with their whole chest say something, and I'm just like, just let it go, Yami, just let it go. But this time I couldn't let it go, and also because some of you guys were just like, Yami, what's going on? Do a stream, tell us about it. And I was like, no, okay. Yeah, I will. Fine, I will do a stream. There, I turn the music down some more. Let me know if that helps. So I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't really do any work today. I just spent the whole day researching all of this and making this PowerPoint, because this is way more fun. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we all had the same information so that we can be armed with the correct knowledge and as accurate information as I could find and verify between all the sources, so that you can either argue with the crazies or just ignore them. So, the big question. On February 9th, HYBE announced it had become SM Entertainment's largest shareholder after acquiring a 14.8% stake from Lee Soo-man, the former CEO and founder of SM. So what does that mean? That is the biggest question. There's been a lot of hot takes, a lot of stupid takes, a lot of confusing takes. So I am here to clear it up as best I can. And for that, we need some goddamn context. I know the internet likes to talk about things in isolation, ignoring history, ignoring other stuff that's going on in a company, or just, you know, pulling together information that doesn't actually relate to it at all and pretending that they do know what they're talking about. Why am I losing my voice today? This is not good. I'm supposed to go to karaoke. I can't sing like this. So, let me give you some context. And the context that I need to give you is, first we need to talk about Lee Soo-man and his company. And I understand that for a lot of people, kind of including myself, their entry point into K-pop, into this space, was through BTS. And because of that, sometimes, especially if you just learn about other K-pop companies through social media, you end up not understanding like the full picture of like the history of the big three companies, who dominated when, and then fan wars color how people talk about this shit. So it ends up not being accurate. So I'm gonna try and present to you like an actual, as unbiased as I can be, perspective on him, because this is the perspective that HYBE used to evaluate what they were going to do in this situation. So Lee Soo-man was born in 1952, so he is currently 70 years old. He's an old man. You know, like, ideally, he is retirement age, you know, where you just retire and enjoy your wealth until your twilight days. He is the founder of SM Entertainment, which was established in 1995. It existed earlier than that as SM Studio from like 1989, but SM Entertainment officially, you know, came into being in 95. So SM was the first K-pop agency to be founded of the big three. The big three being SM, YG, and JYP. And yes, I am going back. And if his company is responsible for debuting a bunch of really popular artists. And I've broken them out here by like generation. And if you don't know what K-pop generations are, it's basically like a way that people group together artists that debuted over like a specific set of time, and who have like similar strategies in terms of how they interact with their fans and try to, you know, create money and like have a space in the industry. So the first generation artists were like in the early 2000s, and like 90s into early 2000s. And this was artists like HOT, Shinhwa, Boa, and Trax. And then second gen artists, so first gen artists were really just focused on Korea. Second gen artists were a little more elaborate. Like instead of just making music, they were now also focused on visuals. They were focused on maybe making, having more, I don't know, like brand deals, having like a good image where instead of being like idols where they were perfect and you could never attain them, they were more like your friendly neighbor or whatever. So they were a little more attainable. So second gen artists that came from SM were TVXQ, Super Junior. All of this will come back to being relevant in the next slides. So third gen artists, this was like 2008 until 2013. This was artists that were even more relatable than they were before. Maybe they had started social media, they had expanded into Japan, maybe all over Asian countries. And SM, third gen artists were Girls' Generation, SHINee, and FX. Those were their big ones. And then the 3.5 generation, this is the generation that BTS fits into, because it was like they were more on 3.5 gen were artists that were more on social media. They provided way more content than just their music or their performances. They would have like I don't know, like shows that they did, and there was starting to be more of a global look at like how you can access artists in other parts of the world, not just Asia. So breaking also into America. And you could argue that the pioneer of this was BTS, and BTS had to pioneer it because they were treated really badly and excluded from all the typical things that all the other artists were doing to make it big in Korea. So when they focused outward and realized that there was a market there and people wanted to listen to them, other artists from the other big three companies were like, oh, we can do that too? All right. So that's 3.5 gen. And then fourth gen is, I guess, what we're in right now. And this is artists like aespa, TXT, Stray Kids. So artists that are really focused on just like debuting and having an immediate global look at, like being an artist for every country, not just focusing on Korea first and then outside countries later. So aespa is the SM flagship artist from the fourth gen. And so far to date, basically all of the creative direction that SM was taking was led by Lee Soo-man. He was involved in everything. It was his baby, it was his vision. It wasn't really collaborative, it was him. And I think at some point they called it SM 2.0. And I think that was also when they created SM Town, which is all of their artists being together and performing together in festivals and blah, blah, blah. So that's him. So under his leadership, there was a lot of success for SM artists in Korea. And I'm going to show you in a minute exactly what that looks like. And through him, SM has historically been a major player in the Korean music market. He just kept churning out artists that everybody loved, that were the most popular in Korea. And so, like I said, the company was founded in 95. In 2000, they went public. So they are exchanged on the, I think they're just called the Korea Exchange now. So I lost my page. All right, so in Korea, their version of Billboard, so their big chart that documents all of the music sales in their country is, well, it's called the Circle Chart now. It used to be called Gaon Chart. I'm sure you guys have seen people talk about it on Twitter. It used to be talked about more before artists became more Korean artists, K-pop artists became more global, and now everybody focuses on how they do on Billboard. When in the past it was like focused on Korea charts, and so this was the big one. It came out in 2010, so all of their statistics and all the information that they have to give us is from 2010 onward. So that's what I'm just gonna use as my example because I don't have anything older than that. So if you look at the year, so this chart is the top 10 album sales for the whole year of 2010. And if, as you can see, we have Super Junior, Girls' Generation, SHINee, and Super Junior again. And you can see that there's pretty much, there's a lot of domination by SM artists. There's a little bit of YG, and there's this other artist called CJES. But that's it. It's mostly SM. The following year, it's pretty much the same. SM still dominates with Girls' Generation, Super Junior, TVXQ. By the way, this other artist, JYJ, is partially made up of members who used to be part of TVXQ, but then left over disputes of how they were treated at SM, which we will get into a little bit later. So that's them. This group named Beast, it's another boy group. Big Bang debuted. CN Blue is another boy group. And then this guy is under label called Key East, which is owned by SM. So still SM domination in 2011. In 2012, it's now basically dominated between SM and YG. You have, again, Super Junior, you have TVXQ, SHINee, EXO, Girls' Generation, and then on the YG side, they've got Big Bang, G-Dragon, who was part of Big Bang, and then you have that other group again, Beast, and then Infinite. I believe this was a girl group. Woolim actually in 2013 or 2014 ended up getting bought by SM. So eventually, like, all of this would roll up into SM as well. Then you have 2013, which is the year that BTS debuted. So this is the market that BTS stepped into. And the top 10 album sales of that year were dominated by SM, between EXO and Girls' Generation and SHINee. And YG, slipped in 8th with G-Dragon, his album. And then Cho Young-pil, this was like a really famous Korean folk singer that was really beloved, so that's him. And then 2014, so this is BTS's first full year in the music market, and again it's all SM domination here between EXO with their Korean subunit, and this is their Chinese subunit. We have Super Junior again, TVXQ, Girls' Generation, Infinite, which is, like I said, Woolim got bought by SM, so now they're part of SM, and Super Junior. And then JYJ, which is formerly TVXQ, but now under a different brand or different label, Beast, and this new group, B1A4, I think it's a boy group, and they're under WM Entertainment, so they're just a freebie. And then 2015 is when BTS started to appear. EXO dominated the top 4 slots with their albums, and then SM dominated below BTS with SHINee, Super Junior, and TVXQ. But in the middle there is BTS under Big Hit Entertainment before they became public and then became HYBE. So this is them with The Most Beautiful Moment in Life, Part 1 and Part 2. Really proud of them. And then here's 2016, where BTS was the #1 album sold in Korea that year with Wings. And here it's SM dominating, and then Big Hit sneaking in with 2 albums. This over here is Most Beautiful Moment in Life, Young Forever. And then we got JYP for the first time appearing in the top 10 with Twice and Got 7. So as you can see, like the favorite artists in Korea that year were BTS, EXO, and then Twice and GOT7. 2017, BTS continued to dominate with Love Yourself, Her, and You Never Walk Alone. And then SM is starting to lose their, domination of the market. They've lost market share to Big Hit, to CJ who were the label for Wanna One. Wanna One was a group that was made on a producer show, like a music show, like an American Idol type thing. And that was they were just wildly successful, and that's also when the Korean music industry realized that people want to have more of an influence over their artists, and that's also partially what Gen 3.5 is. EXO, GOT7, and 17 is also gaining popularity, and you'll see him again in 2018. BTS are still dominating with the top 2 albums most bought in Korea, with Love Yourself Answer and Love Yourself Tear. And then SM here is only here with EXO. And yeah, that's it. EXO, and then a subunit for EXO. CJ is still dominating with Wanna One. Wanna One is wildly popular in Korea. 17 is still making it in there at number 8. And Twice is getting it in here on the bottom from JYP. In 2019, BTS continued once again to dominate with Map of the Soul Persona. And then they also come in at number 5 with their BTS World soundtrack for their mobile game, because we're crazy. I also have that on my shelf behind me. And then this year, 17 makes it on this list twice. They're gaining even more in popularity in Korea. SM here has only 3 spots now, with EXO. I don't remember who this is. I don't know. I don't think he's part of EXO, but it's some other dude. And then Super Junior has a comeback. CJ has another group. I think this was all X1 as another group that was made through a producer show. Kang Daniel is a solo artist, very popular. Who is this guy? He's an EXO? Okay. And then Twice is making it in here on the bottom. Yes, okay, cool, thank you. Okay, 2020. BTS cannot be shaken from the top. We've got Map the Soul 7, we've got B, and then that was the year they also re-released School Love Affair Special Edition. Also, all of these are on the bookshelf behind me. 17 makes it in here with 2 albums. And this is why you can see over the years why it became really desirable. Kang Daniel was from 101. Okay, that makes sense. You can see over the years why it became really desirable for Big Hit to acquire Pledis. Like, 17 is dominating. 17 have a winning formula. So that's why eventually, it's like 2020 or 21, BTS acquire Pledis. And then SM kind of makes a comeback. They debut NCT. NCT comes in here a couple of times with their different subunits. Look at the number of BTS albums, though, for the number 1 position to the others. I know. It's huge. Like, they're dominating everyone so bad. So all of these slides come from a different PowerPoint I was making for a different stream I wanted to do, where I wanted to go through BTS's legacy and show you through this why BTS's growth in popularity in Korea was so monstrous, and it outpaced everyone so much. And especially even in the beginning, you can see that SM was dominating the market, and then BTS encroached, and then you couldn't shake them. They went to the top of the chart, and they went beyond everyone so much. And you can kind of understand that from that perspective. There is a business reason for why the big 3 labels and their connections with the media would start blacklisting BTS and treating them poorly, because they didn't want to give up their market share. Why would they? So that's why I have all these slides and everything. I still want to do that stream at some point. There's a lot of stuff to discuss there. But yeah, So anyway, you can see BTS, SM, Pledis, and YG comes in here with Blackpink as their only top 10 group. Here's 2021. Big Hit has gone public at the end of 2020. If you want details on all the details related to that, I have another video that I did called Army Finance 101, Why Big Hit is Brilliant. So that is on this channel if you want a really detailed look into who they acquired, all the labels that Big Hit merged with, and then how they went public and all the details of that. But after that they became HYBE, and so now all of these artists that they were part of the labels that they acquired are now all HYBE. So now you can kind of see that it's HYBE and SM on this chart again, and then JYP sneaking in there with Stray Kids. And then the last year that we just finished, 2022, BTS tops the charts in Korea again with Proof. And then the only other artists this year, from HYBE we have 17, and we have TXT coming in here. And then I feel like I was looking at something else. So YG is coming in here. JYP, Stray Kids are really gaining success. So basically, and then at the bottom here you have Kakao Entertainment that owns Starship Entertainment with a group called Hive. So you can kind of see that Kakao Entertainment is trying to find some ground on the music charts. They are debuting groups, and they're slowly figuring out how to make successful groups with music that people like. So you can understand why they would be interested in maybe hooking up with S&M so that they could have more presence and make more money with more artists. Because, and I mean, this is kind of an obvious thing, but like the reason that you have labels and different entertainment agencies try to acquire one another and merge and have relationships like this is because it is so much more difficult to think up of a group from scratch and find the talent that will create a group or a solo artist or whoever that is going to be successful, that is going to connect with people, that is going to be talented and trainable and will be popular. Like, it's really hard to figure out how to make that work. It is so much easier to look at an existing artist and evaluate them on how successful they are and what the potential you think they have to grow even bigger, and then figure out how to acquire them. So that's why all of the agencies involved in the K-pop music market, including HYBE, are doing that. But yeah, so end of 2022, you can see that SM has lost its domination as like the biggest of the big three agencies. It is struggling to make it to the top. Ever since BTS became incredibly popular in Korea, they have never relinquished their spot, probably until now, because now they have to go off to the military, so they can't release any more albums. But who knows, maybe if Big Hit drops a re-release of something, we'll still make that chart, just like we did School Love Affair Special Edition. Also, why they test solo and units from established groups as to who would be the most popular. Yes, yeah, it's all really hard to figure out. So it's a lot easier to take existing successful artists and figure out a way to recombine them. Like when you have groups like Super M, like they're just trying to figure out a way to make someone they know is gonna be successful and figure out a way to repackage them in a new box and then say, look, we did it again. So that is a strategy that SM is doing. I don't know if it's the most successful strategy personally, but that's a different conversation. Okay, let me just take a drink. You guys with me so far? I forgot. I have a La Croix. All right. So, SM, under Lee Soo-man's leadership, has not been without its controversies. And a lot of the dark side of K-pop hit pieces that you can find in Western media, some of the biggest scandals have come from SM. This is why I prefer Big Hits Methods and the way that they invest in trainees and new talent. Yes, yeah. We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. So SM has had a lot of scandals and drama in the news in Korea and elsewhere over their treatment and their relationships with their artists. So TVXQ filed a lawsuit in 2009, and they had a lot of back and forth, so it lasted until like 2012, where they had 3 of the members of TVXQ had a legal dispute with SM over the validity of their very long 13-year contract with SM. And they were just like, this is too long. And I think they also thought the way they were getting profit, like the profit distribution wasn't equal between the company and the members. So the result of all that legal back and forth was that the court ruled in their favor. And so they won. I think they got their contract reduced, and then the 3 who filed that also left, and they became JYJ because they didn't want to work with SM anymore. Also in 2009, one of the members of Super Junior also had the same kind of legal dispute with SM. He also had a 13-year contract. And so the result of his legal dispute was that he left his group. So he left Super Junior and withdrew his appeal. So basically they like settled out of court and came to some kind of agreement. In 2014, a member of EXO filed a lawsuit to terminate his contract with SM, claiming that they were treating him really poorly and like overworking him and stuff. So he was also one of the Chinese members of EXO. So and there seems to be a trend here, so you'll see in a minute. So the end result of his legal dispute was that he left the group, but his contract with SM remained valid until 2022, so he couldn't do anything else. So it's basically like he was put on ice by SM, and he was just stuck, and he couldn't go and like be a artist on his own until his contract expired. And then also in 2014, a member of Girls' Generation had a legal conflict with SM over her termination as a group member, where basically there's a lot of like allegations back and forth, but the company, she started her own like merch line or something, and she said that she had like support from SM to do this, and they were like, it was all going to be under the SM branch. And then really she says that like really abruptly they told her, actually you're being dropped from the group overnight, you're no longer a member, bye. So she like posted about this on social media, made it a big scandal, and then the company alleges that she had told them, oh, I'll do only one more album. And then before they could agree with that, she had started her side business, and they had conflicts of interest, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what happened, like what the truth is, but the end result was that she left the group and SM completely. Also in 2014, another Chinese member of EXO also filed a lawsuit to terminate his contract with SM, and he claimed that SM favored the KXO, the Korean subunit of EXO, over XOM, the Chinese subunit. So they had a lawsuit, a back and forth, and the end result of that was that he left EXO, but his contract was also still valid until 2022, so he couldn't work unless EXO let him, and obviously they didn't. In 2015, one of the members of Trax filed a lawsuit over the validity of his 17-year contract with SM, and also claimed that SM interfered with his career after he left the company, like blacklisting him from media and whatever else. So unfortunately, I don't really know the details of this, but I know that the result of his lawsuit was that he lost, and SM didn't have, like, was not found liable that they interfered with his career, I think. And I think his contract was already over by then. But his contract was really fucking long, 17 years, damn. And then, yeah, 17 goddamn years. And then also in 2015, another Chinese member of EXO filed a lawsuit against SM to terminate his contract for similar reasons to the other two guys with the same law firm even. But for that one, he was countersued by SM, and they claimed that his promotions, because basically he like started working in China, and SM countersued and said that he wasn't allowed to do that, and unless like they were participating, because their contract with him was still valid. So he was illegally promoting and making money outside of their contract, which I find really fucking weird. But anyway, unfortunately, they partially won on some points of that, but not all of them. I don't know the details, but like it's a little crazy over there. What are you guys saying over here? Concert remixes would be an obvious choice. We've been begging. I know. If they wait sometime this year, release the concert remixes, it's gonna be fucking number one. I already know. Oh, that'd be so awesome. We would chart the hell out of concert remixes or live concert albums to go with cinema releases. Hell yeah, that would be so much fun. Jeez. There's a saying in China. What? Chris Wu, in a speech at an awards show after BTS started winning, talked about there's a saying in China that allude to EXO rising and BTS falling, and the opposite happened. Oh. That's kind of dumb. I mean, I don't know. I think there's room for... Maybe this is a hot take, but I believe there's room for different artists who make different kinds of music, and like we're all capable of loving more than one artist at once. It doesn't have to be like an either or, but whatever. I think there's just a lot of intimidation by other artists when BTS started becoming popular, because once they got to the top and were the most popular in Korea, they didn't fall back down. Rock solid. All right, so as a result of all these different lawsuits, the Korea Fair Trade Commission got involved in 2010. So this would have been after probably TVXQ, the guy from Super Junior, started suing started suing SM over their really long contracts. The Korea Fair Trade Commission investigated and concluded that SM's policies regarding artist contract terms were unfair. So, and as a result, all artists like renewed their contract, and all of their terms were reduced by 3 years. I think they're all 10-year contracts now. And they also, SM had to reduce like how the penalties in their contracts for breach of contract. So like, I think because of the guy, Huang Zitao, who had to pay SM for illegally promoting in China, he probably had to pay them some kind of portion of like what he earned from promoting his own music outside of them, even though while their contract was still valid. I think the Fair Trade Commission made SM reduce like the penalty for doing that, and so that it wouldn't hurt other artists as much going forward if they did that. And then in 2011, no, sorry, I changed my mind. This thing happened in 2015 with the guy from EXO, and the thing from the FTC happened in 2010. So I guess they reduced the penalties, but they didn't reduce them enough. Anyway, in 2011, SM was one of 15 companies sued by the Korea FTC for price fixing. me and so it's, from what I understand, this was when streaming started to become popular, and there was music that was allowed to be streamed and music that could not be streamed, I think due to like a certain kind of right that you needed to have, like digital distribution management or something. So things that were not able to be streamed, or and because the labels couldn't make money off of it if they couldn't be streamed, they stopped selling them. Like they just like took things off the market, and they fixed, in doing so they like fixed the prices, or maybe I'm talking about the 2012 thing, because that was where SM was accused of colluding with music distributors, but they were later cleared of this charge. There's a lot of just bullshit that was going on, a lot of shady shit, a lot of companies not playing by the rules and trying to maximize how much money they could make, especially in a time where I think this was like when social media was, you know, just becoming more of a way to create transparency for companies like this. So like these shady things started getting caught. And now the biggest scandal kind of that's happened with SM. SM and a little known music production company called Like Planning. So in 2018, it was revealed that SM outsources all of their music production to a company called Like Planning. And they were just paying millions of dollars per year to this company to do all their music production. And it turns out that Like Planning is a company that is wholly owned by Lee Soo-man. So, meaning that any profit that company was making, or just like any money that company was making, was directly going into Lee Soo-man's pocket. So in essence, SM was paying millions per year directly to Lee Soo-man when he was also the CEO of SM and also a major shareholder and also involved in like everything in the company as their like chief producer. So a little bit of a conflict of interest. And it was revealed, people complained, and nothing happened. What would you guys say? There is completely a space for different artists, and that is good to have competition and choice to push each other for excellence. It was the shade many have an issue, but are amused at the fall. Yeah. All right, so this happened in 2018. The following year, in July, the same issue comes up. One of the majority shareholders of SM is this company called HYBE Asset Management. And so they requested that SM buy and merge with Like Planning so that they're no longer like paying money to an outside company. They're like, they can, you know, absorb the production staff, whoever works for Like Planning, and make them part of their staff so that it would reduce the amount of money going directly into Lee Soo-man's pockets. And HYBE Asset Management also alleged that based on the financials that they were seeing, that SM was paying 46% of their profits to Like Planning and royalties. And that it was a major conflict of interest because the company was just giving all their money away. And this is also coming at a time, and I'll show this to you in a minute, where the financials, like the yearly financial performance of SM was tanking and not going very well at all. And HYBE management also alleged that SM had never paid a dividend since since they went public. And they were like, pay us some dividends for holding your stock. Like, come on, you should be like on your feet by now. You've been public since 2000. It's 2019. Because I don't know how many of you are aware, but one of the things that you can get if you own stock in a company is if the company does well, their board of directors can say like, hey, we've done so well, we're going to pay out dividends this year. So everybody who owns one share of stock will get this portion in dividends. And then so if you own multiple stock, you would just multiply that portion by the number of shares you own. So A company doesn't have to do that. Usually their like bylaws say like, if the board thinks that we're in a good spot to pay out dividends, we'll pay them out. But plenty of companies don't pay dividends. And they're not required to, but that's typically a perk of owning stock. So in response to that letter, SM, the board of directors, denied the request, denied anything inappropriate happening. They're like, this is the normal course of business. Our relationship with like planning is great. But as a result of them doing that, their stock price dropped. So, again, I talk about this in more detail about why stock prices go up and down in that other Army Finance 101 video I mentioned about Big Hit. But in a nutshell, your stock price goes up and down based on how confident investors are that you are making good business decisions. Investors aren't omniscient. They're not all-knowing, and they're not great experts. So sometimes investors can have their confidence level drop, and therefore the stock price drop, because they don't have enough information, or the information that's been given to them is misleading, and they think that like you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you do actually. So like that's happened to HYBE when BTS announced that they were gonna be focusing on their solo stuff. The market freaked the fuck out because journalists seized on the opportunity to write all these hit pieces about BTS going on a hiatus when that wasn't fucking true. And as a result, their HYBE stock price dropped because investors were like, oh no, they've ruined their company. They don't have a future. Sell, sell, sell. And when you sell stock, the stock price drops. When people buy stock, the stock price goes up. So in this case, SM was like, we're fine. Everything's great. Like Planning is the best music production company we've ever worked for. Also, no dividends for you. Fuck off. And everybody who was holding, a lot of people who were holding SM stock were like, you know what? I don't see a future where I'm getting dividends or where this company is gonna grow, especially if they're giving 46% of their profits away to fucking like Planning and royalties every year. So they sold their stock and the stock price dropped. That's in a nutshell what it means when you read in an article, oh, this happened. We report that stock price has dropped, or we report that stock price has gone up. It means that investors and people who own the stock are saying like, oh, we agree. That seems like a great idea. Well, we're going to buy more of your stock. We expect you to become more profitable in the future. So when the stock price goes up in the future, I could theoretically sell my stock then and make more money than what I bought it for. Questions so far? That is on the greedy side. Yes, it is. Sounds like legal embezzling. Yes, it is. Lee Soo-man has been the footprint for shady business in the industry. Yes, he has. I have nothing to say except agreement. Okay, I see no questions. I'm gonna move on. All right, so do lots of big businesses do this? Do what? Do they have collusion like this? No. Because it's wrong. Because it's a violation of your duty as a like company employee and as someone who's part of the board of directors to be doing these things with shareholders' money. Because when you're a public company, it's not your company anymore. It's the company of everyone who owns stock in it, and you are now like a fiduciary agent. You are an agent doing things on their behalf, and on their behalf your job is to make as much money as you can in a company and increase their value. It is not your job to line the pockets of Lee Soo-man to make him feel better and to give him a good retirement. But like planning embezzlement, yeah. this isn't normal. To be honest, I don't understand why this went on for so long without being investigated. Because if this happened in America, this would have been definitely investigated and probably stopped. I can't believe this went on for like multiple years and nothing happened. I don't understand. That's the part I don't understand. Okay, so what I have here are the income statement for SM Entertainment for the last couple of years. I really wish something like this existed on Wall Street Journal for HYBE. I have not seen it yet. Maybe one day they'll like I will grant SM this. They may be a shitty company, but all of their financials and all of their information that they need to provide as a public company is much more readily available and easy to access for me than HYBE shit. HYBE shit is a little hidden and it frustrates me. And I think they need to fix that. I really do. I think it's a hindrance to them having the kind of transparency in the West that they want. That's the story for a different day. So, what I'm showing you here, Wall Street Journal doesn't do things in the nicest way. And I couldn't download this, so I had to just take a screenshot. So I'm trying to present information to you and help you understand what's on this page. I'm actually gonna go here so you can kind of see it a little better. So I'm gonna move myself down here for now. So here in reverse order, we have income statements showing how much money they've made in revenue minus the costs of their business equals their how much money they've made in profit. So we're going from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. And 2022 is not out yet. I would imagine their financials are still being audited right now. They'll probably be released either the end of this month or sometime next month. That's usually when big public companies release their financials for a year. So the time goes from right to left here, but they have like a little 5-year trend graphic on the end here. And this is confusing because this one is going from left to right. So like, here's 2017, here's 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019, 2019. You get it? It's like the opposite direction. So I have arrows up here so that you remember what order you're looking in. So what you need to know as takeaways from this is like, the question is, okay, well, there's all this shit that's been happening at SM in terms of controversies and legal disputes with their artists, companies or shareholders complaining that SM and its relationship with Like Planning is incestual and it's robbing the shareholders of the profit and the company of the profit that it's supposed to be getting. And it's like the company is just faltering under the leadership of Lee Soo-man because if you remember, he has an iron fist over all the creative content that the company does. So over the last 5 years, minus this one, what's been happening? Their revenue kind of doubled in 2017 to 2018. And then, well, let's go look at their, let's look at the chart, 2017 to 2018. So in 2017, SM only had EXO on the top 10 albums. And then in 2018, they doubled because they had only EXO. Did they sell more albums? This is 1.5 million, 2 million, 2.5 million. About 2.5 million albums sold. What did they sell in 2017? 1 million, 2 million. All right, so they went from about 2 million albums to 2.5 million albums sold. I guess they found a way to diversify their business that year, and they were like maybe did more promo deals with brands and TV appearances and concerts. Maybe that's how they found a way to make more money because they were losing market share. So going back down. Okay. So they doubled their revenue from 2017 to 2018, and then they've been pretty flat ever since. And if you remember from the Gaon charts, they've kind of lost their market dominance. They have like a couple of spots on the top 10, but they're now vying with Big Hit, with HYBE, with JYP, with CJE&M. They're no longer like the dominant force they used to be, and their revenue doesn't go up that much. We had a little bit of a lift between 2020 and 2021, but not by much. And they actually had a drop. You can see they have percentages here. So from 2019 to 2020, they somehow dropped in sales growth. Yeah. And then the cost of them doing their business, cost of goods sold, doubled when their revenue doubled. That's normal. And then it has been relatively flat. So they're doing okay there. But then if you look at their cost of goods sold without depreciation and amortization of intangibles, this is your true cost of goods sold. It basically has been relatively flat. So their costs haven't really gone up. They haven't really done anything, I guess, to grow their business. And I guess they have a good existing relationships in terms of like supply chain of like maybe manufacturing their albums. It's pretty cheap for them to make their albums. Maybe I don't buy anything from SM artists. I know that HYBE's artists like BTS, like TXT, like I expect that when I buy an album, it's going to be really over the top, and it's going to be full of like little extra bits like photo books and cards and calendars and all that stuff and stickers. For albums, physical albums that you buy from SM, does anyone know like if they're elaborate or if they're really basic? Because the fact that their cost hasn't gone up over the years makes me feel like they still have just like basic albums. If I remember, like we have an import store, an Asia import store, and they sell a bunch of K-pop albums. The K-pop albums typically don't seem really elaborate to me outside of BTS. So maybe it's just the norm to not really spend a lot of money on physical albums because the trend is to stream more and you know, all that. Going further down, looking at their gross income being revenue minus cost of goods sold. The gross income is, you can kind of think of it as like profit. Their profit has been relatively flat, and then it went down, and then it went up again, but not by much. So they're struggling. Like they can't figure their shit out. They're struggling to hang onto the market share that they have with the artists that they have. And then when did aespa debut? Did they debut in 21? I feel like they did. I feel like that's when they debuted. Because I would think that NCT and aespa are probably the only things, because I think they both came out or like roughly around this time, right? Am I crazy? Because I feel like that's what's holding the company together right now. Their expenses have also been relatively flat, so they really haven't invested in anyone and any new employees and anyone who could like bring in a new flavor, as opposed to Hive, who keeps hiring new people all the time, who bring in as their company grows. Hiring new people is like an indication that you have money and you expect your future to be bright and successful, so you have the space to keep hiring more people to bring a new expertise into your company and keep it growing. It kind of is like saying like, we are a very collaborative environment. We're bringing in more people so they can bring in more ideas or to help split up the workload. But in a company like SM, where it's been very pyramid structured with Lee Soo-man at the top doing what he wants and everybody having to do what he says, I don't think that would be the same strategy. aespa was 2020. Cool, thank you. I think all the added goods to the album are pretty universal in K-pop now, but BTS just have super elaborate albums. It's huge in size too. They are fucking huge. I struggle to figure out how to shove them into my my shelf now. Okay, so let me go on to the next page. Here is the rest. This is like the second half of the financial statement. Same deal. We're going from right to left here, and then from left to right for these graphics. The big takeaway from this one is that after their earnings before interest and tax, so basically you have, good God, where do I put myself so I'm not in the way? You have your gross income, and then you subtract your office expenses, your indirects, like other expenses that you have that aren't directly related to you making an album or something like that. That's right here, SG&A, which is selling, general, and admin expense. And then down here, which you can't see because of my logo, is it says EBIT, earnings before interest and tax. And it's the same thing that I have here, so it starts up here. And their EBIT was tiny in 2020, I would imagine, because of the pandemic. They did bounce back, but then they have this unusual expense. This is a very odd term. Typically, unusual expense means you had to spend money on something that's outside of the norm of your business. It's something that, like, the term unusual expense is not what I typically see. I would see non-operating income or expense, which is what you see below it. Like, it's usually like extraordinary expense, like something that was a one-time thing that you don't think you would have happen again. But for some reason, they continue to have more and more unusual expense. So this makes me wonder if this is the line item where they have the expenses for, like, planning, like the royalties they pay. This is just speculation on my part. I don't know. Anyway, then they have all of their interest down here, blah, blah, blah. And then they have their pre-tax income. So this is the income that they get taxed on. And you can see that they doubled their pre-tax income from 2017 to 2018, because we talked about that those were their good year. That was their good year, good jump. And then they cut back down to half in 2019. And then they lost a lot of money during the pandemic, which is fair. It's normal. But I want to say it's fair and normal, but HYBE was able to pivot and still make money during the pandemic. So maybe some people shouldn't be so rigidly structured. And then they made money. They made a bunch of money again in 2021. Definitely more money than they have made in prior years. By the way, all of this is in Korean won. I meant to translate it, but it takes too long. And for our purposes, we don't really care how much money we made. We just want to see, like, the trend between years. And then all the way at the bottom, these last two lines are their net income. So this is just overall, at the end of the day, after they've had to pay taxes, they've had to pay everything to everyone, what is the amount of money left over in their business? And in 2019 and in 2020, they were at a loss. They didn't have money to keep for the following year. They were not growing their business. They were shrinking it. And then in 2021, they basically made back what they had lost, and some, a little bit more. But yeah, so they were struggling. They've been struggling. I want to see their results for 2022 to see if they've continued to be in a positive trend, or if this was like a fluke and they're losing money again, because that would kind of be indicative of, oh, did they figure out a better strategy for how to run their business going forward? Did they switch management? Did they have the two new, well, I don't know if they're new, but the co-CEOs of the company, like, take more of the reins away from Lee Soo-man, and that's why they started making money? Or, like, what happened? All right. So. Okay. So, I've caught you up on the history. We've talked about who Lee Soo-man is, where we came from, or where we came from, where his company came from, how they've been doing the last couple of years. Let's fast forward to September of last year, where for the third fucking time, the incestuous relationship with Like Planning was brought up again. And this time it was a minority shareholder investment company called Align Partners that brought up this issue. And just to like loop you in, Align Partners, based on their website, they're an investment fund, but whereas a lot of investment funds are passive, it's usually like the stuff that your 401k will invest in, where it's like you have people in charge of a large amount of money and they're like, all right, what's on the market that we can invest in for a long time that we think will have slow but stable growth over the next 50, 60 years. Let's invest in that and very slowly get money back. That's like a passive investment fund. This is an activist investment fund. So is it? Yeah. So basically, they're a lot more vocal and they're a lot more involved in the companies that they invest in. They want to improve the company. They want to be like consultants. They want to keep it on the straight and narrow, and they want to make sure that like they're advocating for their shareholders, because they're usually like they also have people who pay into their investment fund, and then they are the ones advocating on behalf of those people who paid in to make sure that they're getting the most return on the money that they've invested in. And I think because they're more involved, they will invest in things that are more volatile instead of something that has like a steady growth. Like something that has a steady growth is like a utility company. People will always need utilities. They will always need gas, power, water. And if it's a public company that you can invest in, you know that over time, the amount of houses or the amount of like places, people living in a place will only go up unless something really bad happens in that place. So you know that there's just going to be very slow but steady growth in a utility company. So you could invest that passively. You don't need to do anything. There's no help that you need to give this utility company. But a company like SM, which is an entertainment agency and label, they have a lot more volatile stock. So their stock is going to go up when something comes out in the media that says that they're investing something. They have a new group coming out, blah, blah, blah. And people will look at that and be like, ooh, that's awesome. They've done something smart. Okay, let's buy more of their stock. Stock price goes up. And then maybe the next week, one of their other artists releases a post on social media claiming abuse or something that went wrong or unfair treatment. And people will be like, oh, that's a shitty company. They actually don't know what they're doing. I'm selling my stock. A bunch of people sell their stock price goes down. So that's a very volatile company. So that's a company that maybe you have aligned partners look at and go, there's room for growth. We have knowledge in how to make this better. We're going to invest in this company to the point where we are a big enough shareholder that we have a voice, and we're going to make them do things correctly. So in September, Align Partners claimed that SM had paid over $100 million to Like Planning since Like Planning's inception. And this time, Align Partners was really vocal, and they and the other minority shareholders pressured Lee Soo-man to step down from his role as like the head of the company so that he would just be a shareholder but not involved in the company. And in the same vein, in the same time, the board of directors voted to terminate their contract with Like Planning by the end of this past year. So in the meanwhile, Lee Soo-man has apparently been trying to sell his shares in the company for a while. In 2021, there were rumors that HYBE, CJ E&M, and Kakao were bidding to buy out Lee Soo-man. At that time, his ownership totaled 18.73%. And those rumors that he was trying to like sell his stock made the share price of SM stock go up. So it seemed that people in the marketplace were like, yeah, buy him out, get him out. we need new people. And then it was also rumored that Hive's offer was rejected. But nothing was ever finalized with any other company. And these are all rumors, like nothing is official. It's just, it was reported, you know, it was leaked or whatever. So keep in mind, this guy is 70. He wants to retire. He wants to take his cash cow, and go live on some island or something, right? Theoretically, that's what I would want to do if I was at that age. So as of September 30th of this past year, this is what the, I'm gonna do this. This is what the, shareholder structure looked like. Where can I put myself? I'm gonna put myself up here. The biggest, shareholder was Lee Soo-man with his 18.46% stake. Then the next biggest is the National Pension Service, the Korean National Pension Service. Then you have KB Asset Management. Then you have Galaxia SM. I don't know what the fuck that is. Maybe it's a subsidiary. Then you have treasury stock. Treasury stock means it's stock that the company has repurchased, has taken off the market to get back some ownership and to make the price go up a little bit. And then everyone else, you know, stock that's just on the market, others, is like 65, almost 66%. So that's where this was in September, the end of September. And then their board of directors only had 4 people on it. So you had, let me go back. Galaxy SM sounds like a Sailor Moon character. It does. I meant to Google that, but I didn't really care. They've not really been involved in any of this drama. Okay, so their board of directors only has 4 people on it. 3 of them are people who work at the company, and only 1 is an external person. In comparison, American board of directors for American public companies have to have like fucking 6 to 12 people, and like half of them need to be external people, like people who don't work for the company, and sometimes you need people who are outside of the industry even. Granted, there's been a lot of reform in America for our public companies here after all of the scandals that have happened with Enron, with good God, my brain hurts. What am I trying to say? Like, we've had acts passed like the Dodd-Frank, Sarbanes-Oxley. These all made requirements for how American companies, who they need to put on their board of directors, and how to make sure that you don't have like a conflict of interest and you can have people siphoning money away into their pockets instead of giving it to shareholders or growing the company, which is what they're supposed to be fucking doing. So in this case, for SM, the fact that all of these years since the company went public in 2000, they've only had 4 directors is crazy. And so here is the 3 inside people. You have Lee Sung-soo, the co-CEO with Tak Young-jun, and the Lee Sung-soo is the nephew of Lee Soo-man, Arthur Anderson, yes. And then the third guy is their like visual and art director, Park Jun-young. So it's these 3 dudes, and then their external director is this guy who's, by the way, who's clearly much older than them. So I'm sure he probably feels like an outsider. And he works as the head of Korea's air freight business division. So he's completely outside of the industry. And you want this. You want people who are outside of the industry because they give you a fresh look into your company. And they give you an outside perspective of like, are you sure what you're doing makes sense? Am I going to talk about Kakao too? Yes, we're getting there, okay? We have to get there. So, like, you want more outside directors is what I'm trying to get at here. So, in January of this year, the 4 people on the board of directors announced that they were expanding their board from 4 to 7 members, and the 3 new people were all going to be outside directors, and one of those 3 was going to become the new chairman. And then they were going to create a couple of new committees on the board of directors, one of which was going to be specifically to provide more transparency and review the company's internal governance. So, like, basically audit themselves and what the fuck they were doing. And one of those new directors is going to be the CEO of Align Partners, Lee Chung-hwan. So, February rolls around. On the 3rd of February, the 2 co-CEOs, Lee Sung-soo, Lee Soo-man's nephew, and Tak Young-jun, announced SM 3.0. Oh, and also, like, by the end of this year, by the end of 2022, Lee Soo-man has kind of been removed from the company head, right? So now these 2 guys finally have the space to lead the company the way they want. They announced SM 3.0. It's going to be this big integration of all of the company's different systems for music production, creative content, global distribution, all of these different things coming together. It's going to be a multi-label, multi-production system. No involvement from Lee Soo-man at all. And also, this is strikingly similar to what HYBE is doing. HYBE strategy. So these 2 guys are finally going, we're going to do that ourselves. And we're going to do it with our connections. So 3 days later, on February 6th, those co-CEOs and the CEO of Kakao Entertainment announced that Kakao is acquiring a 9.05% stake in SM. And the way they were going to do that was not by having existing people sell their shares, but by the company issuing new shares so that Kakao could buy them and they could become the 2nd largest shareholder after Lee Soo-man. And also, SM and Kakao were going to enter into a contract to facilitate SM 3.0 with, like, what the co-CEOs wanted to do and Kakao's platforms. Kakao is a huge company. They have all these different connections all over the world, all these different IT platforms and apps. It was going to be this golden partnership. The next day, Lee Soo-man sues them to block that, to block the shares from being issued because he claims that they're illegal. Because the bylaws for you know, like, the company, for the shareholders, state that if any shares are going to be issued, if any stocks are going to be issued, existing shareholders have the right, like, for first dibs. They have the right to buy those shares first before anyone else. So if these shares are issued, he has, you know, the right to buy them first. And he wasn't notified as the largest shareholder. So he's claiming that, like, they did it on purpose because they want to push him out. They don't want him involved anymore. So is it legal to offer new shares to an outsider? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just answered your question. But yeah, so, like, he filed the injunction. It's been blocked for now. And then the next day, rumors emerged that Lee Soo-man was talking with HYBE to buy his shares so that he would just literally sell his shares to HYBE and HYBE would become the largest shareholder in SM. The next day, the Korea Exchange requested that HYBE confirm what their intent is regarding SM because the, like, annual shareholder meeting for SM happens in the beginning of March. So, like, this is really close to it, and whatever HYBE's decision is would have a really, like, big impact on what people want it to do. So the Korea Exchange was like, okay, HYBE, fess up, what are you doing here? And so the next day, HYBE confirms that they are buying um, Lee Soo-man's shares so that they now are going to have a 14.8% ownership in SM, and that their also intent in the future is to offer to buy an additional X amount of shares from the market so that their total ownership share would be 25%, making them the distinctly largest shareholder in SM. Why didn't they ask Kakao the same question? What do you mean? What do you mean clarify for me? But yeah, so at this point, in response to this announcement from HYBE, the SM co-CEOs and like 25 of the top executives in SM said that they issued like a statement saying that they were unhappy by HYBE's hostile takeover. So everybody's claiming hostile takeover. Lee Soo-man was claiming it. Now the company's claiming it against HYBE. So like, by the way, people have been throwing around the term white knight. All white knight means is it's like a term in investment and acquisition where a friendly person buying shares to become like a major stockholder in a company is called a white knight, and someone doing it where the people involved don't want him involved, it's called a black knight. So HYBE is either a black or a white knight depending on whose perspective it is, and Kakao is also a black or a white knight depending on whose perspective it is. So yeah, I just like that people were throwing that term around, and I'm like, it depends on whose perspective you're taking. Are you taking Lee Soo-man's side? Are you taking the company co-CEO's side? Whose side are you on? What was Kakao's intent to buy all these new shares? So if you remember, Kakao in the last year in 2021 was like the 10th biggest album, like Kakao. So Kakao is this big company. One of the subsidiaries they own is Kakao Entertainment. Kakao Entertainment is trying to get more into the music industry. And like I said, the hardest way to do it is by finding talent and creating people from scratch. It's much easier to acquire an existing label and their artists so that you have money, so you can then turn around and go like make new artists then. So like originally when the Kakao Entertainment and SM co-CEOs were saying like announced their intent for Kakao Entertainment to become a major shareholder, they were saying that like their contract that they drew together to like work together going forward was saying that they were gonna collaborate to host global K-pop editions. They would collaborate for global promotion of all of their artists. They were going to use SM intellectual property, so like all their artists and concepts and album concepts and all that, and they would promote them on Kakao platforms. And Kakao has apparently like AI technology that SM was going to use potentially for aespa or other AI artists going forward. And then like this was like this partnership between Kakao and SM was going to facilitate the SM 3.0 strategy, where they were going to oust Lee Soo-man and adopt like a multimedia strategy similar to HYBE, similar to Weverse. So that was Kakao's intent. I think it's hilarious that Kakao was going to pay Lee Soo-man I don't know what that for his shares, and HYBE is going to get double his shares for 30% off. Well, that's an interesting point. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so we're on the question part. So will HYBE's acquisition actually happen? So right now, HYBE can purchase Lee Soo-man's shares right now if their total ownership percent is less than 15% in the company. Like Lee Soo-man, if he wants, he has every right to turn around and be like, here, you can have my shares now. Buy them from me. They're yours now. So nobody can stop that, as far as I understand. However, so like the acquisition that HYBE is doing right now to get to 14.8%, like that's fine. If their ownership exceeds 15%, which is kind of what they want to do, by offering to buy off the market enough shares to reach 25%, that purchase has to be reviewed by the Korean FTC for potential monopoly. And if it's reviewed and found, and the FTC finds that, like, okay, you're good to go, then HYBE will do that. Or the FTC might say, no, you're too close of a competitor to SM. This would be, this would like increase the risk of monopoly. We're blocking this. So that still might happen. Also, if the injunction, so like the shareholder meeting is in the beginning of March. So before then, the injunction against against SM releasing more shares might be lifted. So if that happens, then at that point, I think Kakao has to decide if they still want to be involved with SM, because right now, HYBE acquiring 14.8% of stock has already happened. It's done. It's done. That was allowed. It's good. So if the injunction is lifted, at this point, in theory, the board of directors could issue new stock and say, here, Kakao, you can still have this. But now Kakao might look at HYBE being involved and either decide, like, no, we don't want to be involved, or they could say, yeah, okay, we'll work with HYBE. We could have a three-way partnership here. The other thing that is still TBD to me is the contract that SM announced with Kakao, like this whole SM 3.0 thing. Has it been executed, and is it good? Is it still valid, or was it pending release of this stock? And like, if that doesn't happen, then this agreement isn't happening. So all of that is TBD. I think they're all scrambling behind the scenes to figure out what they can work out. Why are the SMC co-CEOs and the execs against the HYBE acquisition? My take on it is that they have a fear that HYBE will become a domineering presence in the company, just like Lee Soo-man. So it'll just be Lee Soo-man 2.0, and the CEOs and the execs won't have the space they need to run the company the way that they want to. They release like some official statement that's literally saying that they just want the freedom to pursue their own business strategy. To be honest, it's unclear what HYBE, if HYBE would be the like demon they think HYBE is. Unclear. Also, there's a risk of Lee Soo-man just going to start a new label on his own with the proceeds from selling his shares to HYBE, and then just stealing SM artists that are loyal to him. Because I think in the process of all this happening last fall, one of the SM artists like issued some email or some letter to the company, like protesting the removal of Lee Soo-man and saying like this guy has been the like foundation of this company. We need his expertise. You getting rid of him is a mistake. So I think there's some internal conflict happening at SM over what the future of the company should be and whether they should get rid of Lee Soo-man or not, or all that. The big question, why does HYBE want to acquire SM ownership? Why do they want to be involved? Well, there are a lot of business benefits. The first is that right now, SM artists are not on Weverse. If there's a relationship there, it's a lot easier to get them onto Weverse. And SM has a competitor app called LYSN. And they also have their own version of like what VLive used to be, called Beyond Live. So those potentially would go away, and SM artists would just come be on Weverse and use, you know, VLive is now part of Weverse, so like that could happen. You would get the potential for SM artists coming to Weverse Con, so there would be more artists that could be offered at these HYBE music festivals. More diversity, capturing more people, more music listeners on the market. Also, very importantly, with such a big share in the company, there would be an expansion of artist revenue sources, which would be important because BTS is going to the military, right? So that's the biggest way that HYBE has dominated the music market and gotten the revenue from. So with BTS not being able to release as much new content and all the stuff as they have been before, having relationships with these artists and having a portion of their revenue trickle down into HYBE would be beneficial. Also, they would be able to acquire and look at existing SM relationships with other companies. Like whether it's just other labels, whether it's logistical stuff. They would also be able to look at the existing SM supply chain for how they make merch, how they manufacture albums. So all of this would be a way for Weavers and HYBE to figure out how to make their stuff cheaper, how to make shipping cheaper. Like all of these things could be, there's potential to improve them by looking at what SM does, a company that's been around for so much longer. They could also, so HYBE has its own like part of the company that is focused on production and like also like concerts and creating multimedia stuff. So now that like planning is out of the picture, HYBE could step in and also maybe start a relationship with SM artists that way. And also by blocking Kakao Entertainment from becoming involved in this, they block them from becoming a competitor in the 4th gen K-pop industry, where everything is about being global and virtual and multimedia and everywhere. So yeah, and then from an altruistic standpoint, one of the big benefits is that HYBE gains influence over how artists are treated at SM and what their creative process looks like, and maybe could improve it. Okay. I have 15 minutes. I'm going to try and get through the rest of these slides, and then we'll look at your questions. So, why did Lee Soo-man sell his shares to HYBE? It was his best offer right now on the table to cash out of the company. As we talked about before, he's been trying to cash out and you know, make money, but he didn't want to do it and leave prematurely. I think, and also he wanted to make sure he was getting the most amount of money he could. So in this case, his back was basically to the wall. The people in his company wanted him out. The other shareholders wanted him out. So he's like, I'm basically gonna fucking go now. And HYBE was like, fine, we'll pay you. I think they said we'll pay you 120K of won per share, and the like stock price even right now is at like 114K per share. So they're paying him more than right now what the stock price is, having risen since it was announced that HYBE was going to be becoming a shareholder of SM. So he's making more money than he would if he sold his shares on the market. And then also, I think potentially Lee Soo-man thinks he'll still have some influence over SM if HYBE is on his side, because he is retaining like some small portion of shares in the company. And maybe he thinks that like, oh, HYBE is going to be on my side now. But I don't know. Maybe he's just being petty. And then what are the terms of this stock purchase agreement from HYBE and to Lee Soo-man? Allegedly, I saw this allegedly. I wasn't able to prove this, but someone was talking about it. Some article that I was like, I need evidence. Lee Soo-man can only produce music outside of Korea for the next 3 years. Lee Soo-man cannot hire any SM employees or artists for the next 3 years. And he has delegated all of his voting rights to HYBE for the March meeting. So he can't vote on anything. He has no say. I don't know if he's even going to come. It's HYBE's problem now. And the remaining shares that he has, they're not for the purpose of exercising management rights. They're just for collecting some kind of income. And also, he's going to terminate his relationships with the subsidiary companies that SM has, like Dreammaker and SM Brand Marketing, and he's not going to get royalties from them anymore either. So basically, he is cutting. This is from a HYBE press release. I couldn't find the press release unless they only released it in Korean. That's my problem. I'm not going to take anything until I 100% I'm not going to say anything is 100% true unless I verified it myself. That's why I wrote allegedly. But yeah, so all of these terms that that have been stipulated are for the purpose of like removing all of the conflicts of interest and issues that SM shareholders still had with Lee Soo-man's incestual relationship with the company. So this, in theory, fixes everything. So why does buying SM shares give HYBE some kind of control? So, in a nutshell, ownership in a public company is determined by stock or shares. Those words are interchangeable. Employees of a public company answer to the CEO. The CEO answers to the board of directors, and the board of directors answer to the shareholders. How? The shareholders vote to elect the directors of a board, and they choose them based on the director's expertise, knowledge, and what they plan to do. The board of directors are who determine company policy, direction, strategy, and then tell the CEO, okay, go implement it. And so those voting rights that the shareholders have are granted based on the percent ownership, but based on how many shares they have. So through buying Lee Soo-man's shares, HYBE will have a significant influence over the board through their votes, and other shareholders will be swayed by HYBE's decision making to vote similarly, or they will just vote through a proxy, like a representative who comes and says, I represent X amount of people. So because at this point, all right, hold on, let me just pause really quick. I did the math basically. All right, I don't know. Can you see this? All right, so let's look at the top first. So as of September 30th, here was how the shares were divided up between everyone. This is the same as the slide I showed you earlier, with the screenshot and the pie chart. This is what everyone looked like. And then the idea was for Kakao Entertainment to get new shares. Yeah, they were going to, wait, hold on, this is wrong. Yeah, see, this doesn't make sense. So the way I saw it reported in one place was that Kakao Entertainment was going to get 1.14 million shares, and they would have a 9.05% total ownership in the company. But I was like, if you do this and then you give the rest, because they said also like the total amount of shares issued would be 1.23 million, and so the difference between this and everything else is 90,000. I was like, if we do this, they only get a 4.56% ownership. That's not what you said. So if you add an additional couple million, you can finally get to the 9.05% ownership. But then you also have to buy shares off the market. And maybe that's what Kakao did. They bought shares off the market and then also it got issued. They were going to, in theory, get issued new shares. Basically, when I tried to do the math of what all these articles were saying, it wasn't adding up, and I was like, I'm either missing information or things aren't clear. I don't know. But the second example, which is where what was announced for HYBE, here's the same shares as of 9:30, and if you just insert the shares that HYBE is buying directly from Lee Soo-man, you get to the ownership percentage that is being reported, 14.8%. So this makes sense to me. What has been reported for what they were gonna do with cacao doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, math doesn't lie, so I don't. What the fuck? Anyway, so this is where things are right now. Lee Suman, let me lock this. Lee Suman has a 3.65% stake. HYBE has 14.8. The next biggest is the math is not mathing exactly. The National Pension Service has almost 9%, and everyone else is still the same. Nothing else has changed. And what HYBE is going to propose, if it's approved, in theory, so after, is they want to issue to get up to 25% ownership in the company, and they're going to buy off the market. So, and what that means is like they are going to offer a price for each share that is on the market at a price that is above what it's selling on the market. So if I'm a shareholder, it is and like I could sell my stock on the market right now for $100, but HYBE is offering me $150. I should probably fucking take it, because if I do sell it, then I'm making that I'm making money instantly right now off the difference. So they're going to, in theory, they would offer to buy 2.7 million shares off the market, and then they would have a 25% stock in the company. I thought they wanted to purchase an additional 25%. No, well, I looked at a bunch of articles. What they were saying is they want to buy an additional amount of stock to get to 25%. That is how I've understood it after looking at multiple articles. But I will always leave room for error. All right, we have one more slide, I think. Okay, so what can we expect to see going forward? We can expect to see drama playing out in the media and through more public statements. We can expect to see legal disputes over who has the right to SM ownership, whether it's Kakao Entertainment, whether it's HYBE, whether it's Lee Suman, whether it's the co-CEOs. And then based on all the shit that's going on in the media regarding this, you're going to see stock prices rising and falling based on what investors think are good or bad business decisions. For SM and for HYBE, you'll see HYBE stock going up and down as well. Yeah, lots of drama, and it'll be all over Twitter too. Yes, although I tend to think that Twitter drama is more asinine because people like to claim they know what they're talking about, and then they throw a bunch of information all over the place and it doesn't make any sense, but then they're very confident about what they've said. So I could probably do a couple minutes of questions if you guys have anything. Let me scroll up and see what you guys have been saying and if there's any questions I need to answer. Is SM only in music, or are they in other business sectors? They have actors, I think. They've expanded. They're an entertainment agency, so they're all over the place. It's common now for like entertainment agencies, K-pop agencies to be involved in a bunch of different things. I just don't know the details. Was there plan to do all this HYBE copying with Kakao's help? Yes. Basically, they looked at HYBE. They saw all of the success that HYBE was having and all the money they were making when SM was struggling. And they were like, well, I think maybe HYBE knows what they're doing. Maybe we should, do something similar. Maybe not the same thing. Yeah, we're definitely going to do something different. We're going to utilize Kakao, yeah, it's gonna be different, but no, it's the fucking same. But that's kind of what HYBE knew was gonna happen and what they kind of wanted to happen. in their corporate briefing from a long time ago, they basically said that they want to be the paradigm shift in the industry. They want to show that their way of treating artists, of promoting creative freedom for their artists, and like this inter-department synergy is the way to create a really good business that's adaptable in times of economic strife and that makes everyone happy. And by being the example of that, they could influence other companies to do the same thing, and that would enrich the environment for everyone. So they kind of knew that was coming down the pipeline, I think. What are they scared of? Being PD isn't even the CEO anymore. They just don't want other people on their pie. They've been dealing with Lee Soo-man for so long, the SM CEOs and execs. I think they just want to get away and do their own shit. But unfortunately, when you're a public company, for better or for worse, you don't really get to make those choices. You're at the whim of the shareholders, of people who want to own your company. Like that's one of the cons of being a public company. The pro is that you can amass you can fundraise a lot of money really quickly by issuing more shares. The con is that you are then beholden to what other people want. HYBE released details of the share sale, and it restricted Lee Soo-man to only OS production and not in SK. I don't know what OS it means. SM also has the largest actor roster. HYBE doesn't have any actors or experience in that. Ooh, very true. Very, very true. That would be really cool. Does anyone know if Beyond Live is better than Weverse? I don't. Does anyone know? The idea of the altruism is what makes me want to take HYBE's side. It's not a business perspective, but it's a fan perspective. That's fair. I mean, I'm also biased. I think HYBE is doing a phenomenal job, and I support them as well. At the very least, I think the artist would benefit from the way HYBE creates music. Agreed. The rumor about Lee Soo-man being sent to HYBE America had me rolling. So the Kakao information being fed to media is showing discrepancy/lies. So Chris Lee is doing something dodgy, which is what something... Maybe. Yeah, I mean, whatever they told, you know, journalists that was then reported to me, the math doesn't work, so... I don't know. So that thread about the conglomerate and preventing Kakao from getting into K-pop, was it reliable or not? I mean... Like I said to someone else who asked me about this, like, there were parts of it that were valid, like wanting to not to have a new competitor. Like, any company is going to say, I don't want a new competitor in my space. I want to do things my way. Whether that is of something that should be allowed by the FTC is a different question. But most companies are going to be like, I don't want any more competitors. So, but on the other hand, I don't think that was the primary reason that HYBE stepped in. I think HYBE has been looking to expand their business for a while. They've been at this. They've been allegedly talking to Lee Soo-man about getting his shares since 2021. Like, they need to diversify their portfolio and in how they make money. Any of you guys who have watched my Army Finance 101 videos where I review the financials, the quarterly financials from HYBE, know that I and HYBE have repeatedly stressed that they're trying to diversify how they make money so they're not reliant on BTS. And each quarter, bit by bit, they're chipping away at how much they rely on BTS. Unfortunately, it's still a lot. And with BTS going to the military and doing things differently going forward, they need to expedite that process and find a faster way of getting revenue elsewhere and not having to rely on BTS. What are your thoughts on the thread that you quote retweeted? I think it was too quick to call Bang PD and Lee Soo-man friends. Yeah, I mean, what? This is not Lee Soo-man needing an angel savior and Bang PD being like, I will save you. I will save K-pop. No, that's not how this works. Those can be things that people maybe involved in this have thought about, but this has to be a business decision. 95% of it has to be related to business, has to be related to for the good of HYBE and its future, because HYBE, just like SM, is a public company, and the people who work at HYBE can't just do things willy-nilly. They have a fiduciary duty to do things that will increase the value of their company for their shareholders as well. That is what being a public company means. They can't make emotional decisions. They have to be business rooted. People, I think, are sleeping on the HYBE America acquisition of QC Holdings. They have a lot of sports management and other diversity for HYBE. Yeah, I had been hoping I would have time to research that for this stream, but I haven't. I want to look into them, and then maybe I'll do another stream where we can talk about that as well. I wonder how many artists will jump ship now that it's unlikely SM will retaliate and blacklist anymore. Well, who knows? Who knows? Maybe the people who still work there would still do that. I think it's really hard to change ingrained behaviors and policies. It has to come from the tone at the top. So if the tone at the top has been one way for so long, unless the co-CEOs and the top execs make a concerted effort to do things differently and to treat artists differently, it's not going to happen. That's why HYBE being the majority shareholder is such a big deal, because if HYBE stresses that that's what they care about, then that gets filtered down to the board of directors, that then gets filtered down to the CEO, gets filtered down to the top execs, gets filtered down to the rest of the company. If that push does not come from the top, it's not happening. The supports of the big three keep talking about how Weverse is bad, yet most of the access there is free, whereas they're on paid access only networks instead. How is that bad? People are gonna talk shit no matter what. If it's your competitor, you're gonna talk shit. If it's a fan war, you're gonna talk shit about the other side. It's stupid. Use your logical brain to figure out what the truth is and ignore the rest. Whether Weverse is a better platform, personally, is a question that I still wonder about. I think Weverse has a lot of potential, but for me personally, it does not hook me the way maybe it's supposed to. I don't know. I buy things from the Weverse shop, but my purchase of things was related to my love for BTS. And if BTS are taking a break and kind of slowing down, so are my purchase habits. Thank God for my wallet and my bank account. But so in terms of being a place that I spend time on, I do not spend much time on Weverse at all, unless there's like a live going on. I think the live capability is great. I think Weverse is better organized than VLive ever was, but I still think there are ways to improve that organization. There is no search function on Weverse. What the fuck? I need a search function. HYBE, please help me. With how many pots Kakao already has its fingers in, is getting a larger hold on the music/entertainment industry through SM not looked on as getting closer to a monopoly? I think there is a chance it would have been a monopoly as well, but again, their percentage ownership would have only been 9%, which is below the threshold that apparently the Korean FTC needs to evaluate. So it is... Every company they are incentivized to reduce their competition. They are incentivized to eat up their competitors, to merge, to become bigger by absorbing other companies that were originally competing with them. However, from the consumer standpoint, that creates monopolies, that limits competition, and that in turn ends up putting control over pricing, over creativity, over innovation in the hands of those few companies. So for the consumer, it's not good. So even HYBE is not immune from wanting to acquire everything they need to succeed, even if in the process there may be a risk of monopoly. Perhaps not an industry monopoly, but we've seen how involved Kakao's businesses are a part of daily South Korean citizens' lives. Yep. People need to save that for the future K-drama version of this. Aside from how delicious this drama is, I like how HYBE is doing business, but still this SM thing is more entertaining to watch. Yeah, it is entertaining to watch. And yeah, Jay, Ticketmaster is definitely monopoly. I do not understand how their merger with Live Nation was ever approved. There is no other competitor in the market. Like, they are actually a ticket master, and we're all slaves. It's fucked. But yeah. Okay, all right, I gotta go. I am late to my event. It has been lovely to talk with you guys. I really appreciate all of your enthusiastic participation. I hope you enjoyed my my extra PowerPoint and talking about all these things with me. I love this shit. I think talking about HYBE and BTS and everything related to that from a business perspective is a lot of fun, and it actually gives you a lot of insight into these companies. I am really wary of trusting any article at face value, no matter if it's a Korean article, a Korean translated article from those conglomerate sites like K-pop or Soompi or whatever, or if it's a Western media article from like CNN or Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal. All of those journalists are fallible. All of them can make mistakes, can misinterpret things, or write things from a perspective that may not be technically applicable. You, as the person who consumes this kind of media, who is in the K-pop market, who knows what a good artist is, what interesting things are going on, you have the capability to evaluate what is happening in the business from the most accurate standpoint. So doing what I just did, which is putting what is happening into context by looking at the history of a company, understanding how they've made money, understanding what their dramas in the past have been, reading up a bunch of articles on the same information from different sources so you get like an actual accurate picture. That is how you figure out logically what is happening, whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing. So that's all I gotta say, and I'll keep being on this soapbox for the rest of my life because if there's anything that pisses me off, it's misinformation on the internet regarding the group and the label that I love. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye-bye.